Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers, your statistics and sports podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Tracy.
I'm Corwin Heller.
I'm drinking out of my Juicing the Numbers mug, wearing one of my Juicing the Numbers shirts, and now I'm very upset I didn't have the wherewithal to put on one of my Juicing the Numbers hats because those two things were unintentional, but if I had put the hat on, it would look very intentional.
I'm wearing Penn State because that is who I am as a person.
See, this is why I'm not a marketing strategist, because I just don't give a fuck. I don't care.
I very much agree.
Man, and let me tell you, folks, if anyone out there is considering starting a podcast of their own, first off, it's a blast. Fucking go for it. But also, I never understood why more podcasts weren't just like all over the place in social media. And it's because, you have to hire someone to do that, because I'm not going to fucking do it. You know how little I give a fuck about social media? I'm not spending my time doing that shit. I'm barely got it for myself. God. That's what's holding us back from the masses, my friend. Hiring a social media coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, we'll survive. Anywho, welcome to the show. We're actually recording this on a Saturday, which we don't usually do. Part of the reason we don't usually do that is so that we can burn time collecting any additional headlines that might drop as close to our release date as possible. So that way we can minimize the amount of things that we miss. But given some schedule concerns for tomorrow, which will be Sunday, but yesterday for you people listening to this on Monday, Corey and I are recording today. And we figured as long as we might be missing a newsworthy topic or discussion point, we might as well talk about something that has absolutely nothing to do with anything that's happening right now, kinda-ish.
Damn right.
And talk about the Chicago White Sox. Now, if you have been listening to the show since its violent birth, then you will know that I have been rooting for the White Sox basically for the past, my rooting interest in the White Sox has predated this show because they have been a sad sack team for a long time. And I love a good sad sack team and I want them to be better, and they have good jerseys. So there you go. And since this show has started, the trajectory of the White Sox team has gone quite high, and they're set to win their division and make the playoffs. For Corwin, I'm going to double check myself, as this is, I believe, one of the fun facts that I had up. Make the playoffs for the first time in consecutive seasons in their entire history. Yeah, that's a fact.
I'm gonna need you did check that?
Yeah. So last season, 2020, was the first time the White Sox ever made the playoffs in the wild card. The wild card, which has been around since what, 96? 90, hold on.
94.
When did the wild card come into when? Oh God. There's nothing like this show coming up with, it was 94. Then coming up with topic ideas and frantically Googling because we didn't think that something would come up that obviously came up. So 94. Yeah. So since 1994, the only time the White Sox have ever made the playoffs is when they've actually managed to win their division, which since 1994, they have done 3 times, but that's been it. They won in 2000, 2005 when they went to the World Series, won the World Series. They lost literally, I think, only one game that entire postseason run. It was ridiculous. And then 2008. And that means that there was a 12-year berth there, or 12-year run there, where they not only didn't make the playoffs because they didn't win the division, they made the playoffs because they didn't even qualify for the fucking wild card. And in 2012, they expanded the wild card to 2 teams, which means they really fucking sucked.
Yes, they did.
I mean, that's hard to do.
They have been a team where before I even got into baseball, they were synonymous with being, a team with a loser's mentality. Like Chicago had the Cubs and the White Sox. Like the New York has the Yankees and the Mets, but the Mets also have Well, they do have a history of sadness. They have a rich history as well. They have a lot of really, truly great players that hold up that Mets name. In Chicago, it's like, oh, you're a White Sox fan. Oh, okay. You've made poor choices in your life because you had free reign for both. I'm sorry.
Honestly, even the Cubs, I mean, they haven't won a World Series in my father's lifetime.
But they're a team that still held their nose up high and looked down on some other teams.
That is true. They do have
They are
Ivory in
quite
their outfield.
pompous. Yes, they
Yeah.
do. They do.
Ivory. Sorry, I think I said Ivory. I meant Ivy. I think I said Ivory.
I understood what you meant.
Yeah, it just there was too many syllables in whatever word I just said. Um, regardless. Yeah, I mean, they've been the team where legends go to die. It feels like for our one of my early memories of the White Sox because I think at some point maybe it's just me. It took a few years of realization that like the other teams in the league actually did stuff when your team wasn't playing them. Like obviously you knew that they were like doing stuff, but it's like if the Yankees weren't playing the White Sox, like did they even exist?
Right.
You know? And when I came
Like
to
for the
realize that they
longest
were a
time.
team.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead.
I was going to say, like, there were so many teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks or the Texas Rangers, or pick half a dozen other teams where if I was not actively seeing them in front of me, I had that like toddler age object permanence problem where it's like, I just do not acknowledge that they exist beyond the games they play against
Right.
teams I'm watching.
Right. It is it's like playing peekaboo with a toddler. The second you cover their eyes, it's like,
Exactly.
oh yeah, who?
Object permanence. Yeah.
Um
I've watched a short YouTube video or two. I know things.
and the only the early memory I have of them is when Ken Griffey Jr. was on the team, and it was very much at the end of his career, and it was like everyone was like, "Aw, this is sad." And that's my first memory of the White Sox.
Okay.
And well, actually, hold on. Here's another thing that I didn't actually look up. When did Ken Griffey Jr. retire? I want you to guess.
I have absolutely no idea. 2011.
11. That's gonna be my guess. You said 6.
Okay.
2010.
You were closer.
Yeah, so he was with the White Sox in 08 when they had their penultimate playoff run as of date. And yeah, they didn't make it past the division series. Oh boy.
Before we move on from how bad they've been, the only thing I ever really knew and or connected with the White Sox, holy shit, words are hard, was Eazy-E wearing that baseball cap in the Straight Outta Compton music video.
Yeah.
And just rappers wearing the White Sox hat because it was black and white.
Dude, sorry. I scrolled down to Ken Griffey Jr.'s postseason batting just to look at what he was like in that one playoff run that they had. The answer to that being not great, but that doesn't matter. That was his first playoff appearance since 1997. That's so fucking sad, man.
Wow.
That's it. Ken Griffey Jr. appeared in 3 postseasons in his entire career. And it's like part of me knew that already, but man, it is just so sad to hear it.
I always assumed he was on the Mariners for that 2001 season.
No, he had left for Cincinnati already. He was on Cincinnati in 2000.
Wow. I never put those together. Holy shit.
Because so many of the other Mariners of his time were still on that 01 team.
Yeah.
So it feels like he was, even though he wasn't.
So it really was Pedro's team through and through at that point.
Pedro?
No, Hernandez.
Oh, fuck. You mean
Felix Hernandez.
Oh, yeah, no, but Felix hadn't shown up then. Felix showed up in 06?
What? Nelson Mandela, what are you doing to my brain?
Corwin has just put everyone who's ever worn a Mariners
What?
uniform on the same team in the same year.
Oh my God, 2005. You're right. Who was
There you go.
on the 2001 Mariners?
It was Ichiro. It
Oh,
was
Ichiro. How did I forget that?
Jay Bruner still there? I don't know. It was people. It was people who played baseball
Let's
games.
see. Edgar Martinez.
Edgar's who I was fucking thinking of.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
160 OPS plus that year. Brett Boone with a 153.
Brett Boone was there. I know Randy Johnson had already left. He was in the first or second year of his contract with the Diamondbacks at that point.
David Bell was there.
Oh, the lesser Bell.
Yeah. Let's see. What
okay, hold on. No, stop.
Hold on.
Stop.
I have to. I don't care. I don't care. I'm doing
it. We do this every time.
I don't know anyone on this team. I don't know any of these pitchers, so we can move on.
Okay. Dude, we haven't even got through we haven't even got through the preamble of today's topic. Oh my God. All right. So the only oh, this is ridiculous. The only playoff appearances, in case you were wondering, of the Chicago White Sox is 1901, 1906, 1917, 1919. So, hey, if you were a fan of the early 1900s, your team is moving and grooving. They then did not make the postseason. They then did not make the postseason for 40 years. 1959 was their next appearance. But you know, it was only AL champion and NL champion going to the World Series. There was no, like actual expanded postseason. So then they expand the postseason in the 60s. Then the White Sox don't make the postseason until 1983. Then they make it again in 1993, 2000, 2005, 2008. And then again, that 12-year absence, 2020. Now, why are we bringing this up now? Well, like I said in the beginning of the show, the White Sox, who are currently 10 games ahead of Cleveland in the AL Central standings, are poised to win the division for the first time in, again, 12 years, when they finished 89-74 for the best record in the AL Central in 2008. Oh my God, that's so sad. Oh, the AL Central. Y'all suck. But this will then become their first consecutive playoff seasons in franchise history. So I think it begs the question, how did they get here? And so we figured it might be an interesting look at how the White Sox kind of revamped their team, starting in the year 2016, way, way back in what feels like a completely different era of life, 2016, and kind of seeing what they did with that roster, how they turned it over, and what became of the players that they traded for, and who they got in return, all that type of shit. So, Corwin, you ready to dive into the 2016 Chicago White Sox?
I suppose.
So let's start with the batting here. And we're not going to spend too much time on any one piece because this is about telling a story and not necessarily going down memory lane here. But so the starting lineup, in terms of who received the most plate appearances, because that's how Baseball Reference does it, of the Chicago White Sox in 2016 was catcher Diana Navarro. No recollection of who that is. First baseman, Jose Abreu. So we can lock him in as a guy that we're going to be seeing plenty of. He's still on the team. Won an MVP for them last season. 2 seasons ago. Sorry. Right? Last season? Last season. He beat out Luke Voigt. It was last season. Yeah. Second baseman, Brett Lawrie. Shortstop, Tim Anderson. Lock him in. We're going to be seeing plenty of him. Brett Lawrie, this was actually his last season. He retired after this, which is why if you were like, who the fuck's Brett Lawrie? It's because he's not in baseball anymore. Which brings us to third baseman, Todd Frazier, also no longer in baseball. Left fielder, Melky Cabrera, no longer in baseball. JB Shuck in center field. JB, hold on. All right, I said I wouldn't do this, but I had to. JB Shuck played 7 years of Major League Baseball and has a lifetime negative 1.5 career WAR.
How many years?
7.
Wow.
His career OPS plus is 72. This man must have played some mean defense or something. Oh my God. No, he's a negative DWAR player. What the fuck am I looking at?
They're genuinely, like, we should applaud him for surviving in major leagues for 7 years.
Yeah. Dude, he finished 5th in Rookie of the Year voting in 2013. I can't even comprehend what I'm looking at, so I'm gonna have to close this tab. Okay, wow.
Yeah. No shit.
Right fielder Adam Eaton and DH Avisail Garcia. Both those guys we might know. They're still kind of meandering about baseball. And Adam Eaton had just been cut recently by the Angels, which probably ends his career. And Avisail Garcia is actually having himself a pretty decent, tidy season, which might be an undersell, but still over there in Milwaukee, and we'll very likely see the postseason once again. So that's where they're at today. Of those 9 players, several of which are now no longer even playing the sport in the major leagues, or in MLB, I should say. Only 2 survive these next 4 or 5 years, and we'll see what happened to them and who they got to replace them. The starting rotation is also full of guys that may look familiar. We had starting pitcher Chris Sale, who just made his return to Boston this past week. Starting pitcher Jose Quintana, who's now coming out of the bullpen, I believe, for the Angels. Starting pitcher Carlos Rodon, who is still there. Miguel Gonzalez, who I'm not sure if he's still around. Oh, Corwin, your boy, James Shields. And Matt Latos. Oh my God, I forgot about Matt Latos. He's still there. He's a guy just with a great name. You can't tell me Matt Latos is not an amazing name.
I wish I knew who it was, but I don't.
Look up a picture and you go like, yeah, that guy's named Matt Latos. But anyway, James
VL
Shields.
or just L?
MAT LATOS. 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 Matt Latos. I think he's from he's from like Virginia, but I can't not say his name with like a little bit of like a Russian thing going on there. Anywho, their bullpen is full of guys. The only one who I think is worth any attention is Dave Robertson, but whatever. So that's the 2016 Chicago White Sox. That team ended up with a record of 78 and 84, 4th in the NL Central. They were managed that year by Robin Ventura. Holy fuck, I forgot about that. Oh my God.
Wow.
Robin Ventura, who's probably best known for 2 horrible things to be known for, which is, for one, getting duffed up by like 46-year-old, what's his fucking name? Most strikeouts in history.
Chris Davis.
Come on.
Most strikeouts in history?
Yeah, the pitcher with the most strikeouts in history.
Oh, pitcher with most strikeouts in history?
Yeah.
Oh shit. I don't know. Randy
Johnson?
My
God. No, not Randy. Fuck me.
Not a Maddox. Nolan Ryan.
Oh God. Again, Corwin and I, big baseball people, can't remember names for fucking shit. Even though Nolan Ryan's a name I think we all come out of the womb knowing. But anyway.
Yes.
So Robin Ventura, known for getting duffed up by Nolan Ryan, and then also known for hitting a grand slam for the Mets, but the Mets players didn't let him get to second base, and it became known as the grand single because the game ended and he never touched home. Oh God.
I have to watch this fight before I can mentally continue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Ryan throws at Ventura. Ventura gets all mad. Nolan Ryan, who's like with the Texas Rangers, I think his arm blows out like a few starts after this, basically. And Ventura charges them out, and Ryan gets him in a headlock and just starts fucking rocking knuckles to the fucking dome. Oh, that's great. And Nolan Ryan there is like 44 or some shit, and Robin Ventura is pretty young.
Oh. All right. I'm struggling, so let's continue.
All right. So let's take it to the offseason. That's where the team finished. That year in 2016, the winner of the American League Central was the Cleveland baseball team. It looks like they didn't do super hot. They lost the oh, that's right. That was the year they lost the World Series. Right. So actually the AL Central was coming off 2 pretty great seasons because they had sent the Kansas City Royals to the World Series the year before that, and they had won before. That was actually a set of back-to-back appearances for Kansas City. They had lost to San Francisco in 2014, beat the Mets in 2015. So this was Cleveland's turn now. They eventually would lose to Chicago's crosstown rival, the Cubs, as we all well know. And so we're looking at it out of that context. It's like, oh, what did Cleveland do in 2016? Oh, right. thinking about this in terms of the White Sox really mess with my memory there. So offseason comes, and the White Sox end up starting off that offseason with quite a splash. Their last, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Transaction before that was sending Dioner Navarro, their catcher, over to Toronto in exchange for Colton Turner. Hardly a blockbuster deal. But on December 6th, the night of 2016, Boston comes a knocking and acquires Chris Sale in exchange for a quadruple, a Tetris of players who would end up becoming some names that we are going to recognize very much so today. And were obviously names at the time, but really have cemented themselves as players of impact for the White Sox since then. And those players are Yoan Moncada, third baseman, Michael Kopech, who they still, I would expect, would see him as a starter eventually, but is currently a reliever. Luis Alexander Basabe, an outfielder, and Victor Diaz. So now those players are going to be spending some time in the minors. You know, not those are all, well, Kopech and Moncada are currently major league players. You know, they are part of the major league roster and have been for quite some time. But you know, those, and then I guess Luis Alexander Basabe played 9 games for the Giants in 2020, and no one's seen him since. But anyway, so right off the bat, I mean, Yoan Moncada is having himself once again a very nice season. He's got himself a 115 OPS plus this year and has been producing for the White Sox ever since 2017 when he made his debut with them. And Kopech, who was one of the top prospects in all of baseball at that point in time, has really, this is his first real season with the White Sox. He's appeared in 32 games thus far for them, pitched himself to a 3.55 ERA and 50.2 innings. He's making himself quite a little spot there in currently the rotation, but certainly the possibility of eventually being a starter. So looking at this trade by itself in hindsight, Corwin, what do you think of the beginning of this White Sox rebuild?
I mean, it's hard to do better than trading away a piece who's very vocal about refusing to play for the White Sox any longer, you know, in a situation where you don't have a whole lot of leverage, or at least, you know, 5 years later, looking back, it seems like they did not have a whole lot of leverage in the situation. And getting back a guy who can be a genuine front of the rotation starter in Michael Kopech, who is an absolute flamethrower, and what seems to be a favorite for preseason MVP, Yoan Moncada, who everyone is expecting to seriously break out into the stratosphere. So it's hard not to seriously enjoy the return. Not happy with that sentence, but at least it was I think, grammatically correct sentence. So we'll move on.
Yeah, obviously, you know, I neither of us can sit here and say, well, clearly they didn't need Chris Sale in the next 5 years, because Chris Sale is still pitching in baseball at a high level today, even though he's just coming off of Tommy John surgery. And every team could use a starter like Chris Sale. It doesn't matter if you're as bad as the Kansas City Royals or if you're as amazing as the Los Angeles Dodgers. Every team could use a pitcher like Chris Sale. You know, you're never going to be so bad you can't use Chris Sale. It doesn't matter. But the White Sox were in a position where their talent or their roster was going to have to go through a sincere and severe amount of churn. And part of that would come at the expense of one of your top players. If you have, 26, 25 guys on a roster that need to perform, and you've only got one good dude and like 14 question marks, well, maybe you'll trade away that one dude to get 3 more answers. It's a tough calculus, but the White Sox seem to have made a pretty good bet with this one. And let's take a look at what they did with their very next trade, which was one day later, December 7th. And this is another rather impactful one, full of players we still know today. And that's when they sent Adam Eaton to the Washington Nationals in exchange for Lucas Giolito, Reynaldo Lopez, and Dane Dunning. Now, Dane Dunning is currently on the Texas Rangers, so his trajectory in terms of how it affects the present day Chicago White Sox, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, because all transactions matter, and, we'll get to him when we get to him. But Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez are two guys who are still on the White Sox and still performing, I mean, pretty fucking well. Lucas Giolito had a bunch of question marks up until his 2019 breakout when he finished sixth in Cy Young voting and is having finished seventh the year after in 2020 and probably isn't having a top 5 Cy Young vote season this year, but he might end up finishing in the top 10 again. He's having himself a pretty nice year. He's certainly cemented himself a starting rotation space. He's a top 3 starter for that team in a real sense and in an obvious, kind of he deserves that way. And Reynaldo Lopez has been a guy for them that will pitch innings for them. This season, he's been unreal since he's come back from injury. But he is there. And honestly, you take that because if Adam Eaton was still there, he probably wouldn't be there. So I think that's worth something. Corwin, what do you think about this one in looking back at it?
I mean, again, it's hard not to really hate on the return. It's one of those things where obviously Dane Dunning was a piece to acquire even more, so it's hard to include, but my goodness, it's I still think it's a favorable return.
Yeah, so I mean, over the course of 2 days in December of 2016, the White Sox managed to turn two guys that were not going to help them in their immediate future because they were not in a position to do so in the division that was, I guess, actually looking strong for a change, and turned them into 4 guys that were going to produce for them in the moment, and then 3 additional pieces that would eventually become players to include in other packages, I guess is probably the easiest way of saying that. And fuck, man, that's a hell of a thing to do, especially over the course of literally 2 fucking days. So the rest of the winter goes on. White Sox don't do too much in terms of trades.
Before we move on, can we just look at Adam Eaton's WAR since then?
Adam Eaton?
What did I say?
No, I just want to make sure I heard you. Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I was still in the process. I thought it was gonna be a lot longer. So 2016 finishes the season with the White Sox with 6.6 WAR,
highest of his career.
Highest of his career. That being said, the previous years were 4.1 and 5.2. 2 very, very good, or 3, I should say. God, so 3 total very good years of WAR, trending in the right direction. Still a 27-year-old in the prime of his career. In the 4 years since, in 1,600 plate appearances, he's put up 2.2 WAR.
Yeah.
4.5 OWAR, negative 3.5 DWAR.
The man could only hit in Chicago.
I'm sure we could also look at the totals for Dunning, Lopez, and Giolito, but I think we understand how that would go.
Ooh, yeah, wow, this is just ugly as shit to look at. I guess it's none of it's truly terrible production, but man, it's not what you were probably hoping or expecting if you were a Nationals fan after looking at what this man had managed to accomplish in his time with the White Sox. So, yuck. Ugh. All right. So over the rest of the course of the winter, they really didn't do too much. March rolls around, season just about underway. They managed to also send Peter Bourgeau, a right fielder, over in exchange for cash. That's nothing. Another minor trade during the season. They acquired future considerations from Washington Nationals in exchange for Ryan Rayburn. And then July, as we're approaching the trade deadline, they make a handful of pretty significant moves. So this is now the 2017 season. So just a real quick look at the 2017 Chicago White Sox that year. They finished 67 and 95, still finishing but 4th in the AL Central, which is hilarious because they had 11 fewer wins and finished in the exact same place. Oh God, don't you love baseball? Yeah, you gotta love Detroit, who went from 86 and 75 in 2016 to 64-98 in 2017. They lost 21 more games. Actually, they lost 23 more games than in 2016. Wow. That's just fucking impressive, my friend. God damn.
It very much is.
I'm gonna stop looking at it because I'm gonna get sucked into it. So I'll do a recap of the 2017 White Sox after we finish looking at these trades. But around the trade deadline, Jose Quintana, who had been a very productive member of the Chicago White Sox and had been, for all intents and purposes, especially once they traded away Chris Sale, the ace of that team. In 2017, when he was with the White Sox, he had been an all-star. He had pitched 104 innings. He had gone 4-8 with a 4.49 ERA, but it was a little bit. Oh, sorry, it was an all-star in 2016, I should say. But it was, you forgive it a little bit because he had a career under 4 ERA. His ERA by season with the White Sox 3.76, 3.51, 3.32, 3.36, 3.32. So this year being 4.49, they're willing to overlook it as a little bit of an aberration. He already amassed over 100 strikeouts up to that point. So this was a big trade for the Cubs because they were getting ready to try to go back to the World Series, make another run, and the White Sox are just looking to again get talent where they can get it. And he ended up having a good season for the Cubs the rest of the way down the stretch. He went 7-3, a 3.74 ERA in 84 innings, and got almost another 100 strikeouts, finishing with 98 for the Cubs. So by all means, a good trade for them at the time. His career since then has spiraled a bit, but that's not anyone's fault per se. And in exchange for sending him to their crosstown rival, the White Sox acquired Eloy Jimenez, Dylan Cease, and then two other prospects, Matt Rose and Bryant Fleet. But Eloy Jimenez has absolutely, I keep saying cemented a spot. I really don't know what other phrase to use there. So I feel like I'm just going to keep saying earned his keep. Maybe that's a better turn of phrase. With the White Sox bursting out of the scene, finishing fourth in Rookie of the Year voting in 2019, hitting a 139 OPS plus in his sophomore season 2020. And in 2021, he has kept it going with an OPS plus of 136. So, I mean, he has been very fucking good for the White Sox. And Dylan Cease is really starting to find his own. I mean, last season he had a 4.01 ERA with a 6.36 FIP. So that you might be leaving that season being kind of like, ooh, all right, that 4.01.
No control whatsoever with the baseball.
Yeah, he led all of the AL in walks. Not good. He had 35 walks allowed in 2019 in 73 innings, and 34 walks allowed in 2020 in 58 innings. Ooh. But 2021, he's really turned it around. Like his ERA is very similar. It's 3.92, so it's not crazy lower. But his FIP, and again, I know this is a relatively lazy analysis, as I always say when comparing ERA to FIP, but it is easy. It's lazy, but it's easy. And so here you go. But his FIP is 3.57, and his WHIP is also down tremendously. His rate stats look better. He seems it's a very different, basically 4 ERA than it was last season, and he's really turned a corner and made himself a productive member of that pitching staff. So, Corwin, tell me about this trade for you.
I mean, look, Cease has definitely shown that he can do it. I mean, he had a sub 3 ERA going into June, and things just kind of slowly have been teetering up and down since then. Eloy Jimenez, I mean, come on, he is a part of that outfield core that's just going to be unstoppable. I mean, they also signed Luis Robert this offseason, not offseason, this season. But the other two guys don't even matter. Quintana has been, again, just like Eaton, just a dead piece of capital since that trade. Sure, it helped in the short term, but my goodness, major win for them. Major.
Yeah. I mean, again, they are quickly quickly accumulating guys who are going to be major contributors for them.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess let's go on and continue here. So after that, trade deadline still approaching this 2017 season, they end up making a trade with the New York Yankees, sending over third baseman Todd Frazier and then relief pitchers David Robertson and Tommy Kahnle. And they acquired in exchange Tyler Clippard, relief pitcher, an outfielder by the name of Blake Rutherford, starting pitcher Ian Clark, and Tito Polo, who was an 80 grade baseball name, who I don't think ever did anything. I'm looking Tito Polo up now.
He made us smile with his name, Josh. What could you want from him?
Yeah, Tito Polo
I thought.
is in indie ball. Yeah, he last played
Listen.
affiliated ball with Seattle in 2019. That's it.
Listen, now he's making 35 people in indie ball smile with his name every time he goes up. What more could you ask from him?
What more could you ask for? Yeah, Ian Clark is currently with Colorado Rockies AA team by the looks of it, or maybe their AAA team actually. Baseball Reference is always a little bit funky for me with that. An 8.77 ERA in AAA. That's not good.
Josh,
Yeah.
can we reach out to Tito Polo and get him on the podcast?
Why is that?
I don't know. I just feel like he's someone we could get.
Speaking of someone we could get, I looked up Blake Rutherford on Baseball Reference, and in a rare turn of events, his name didn't even come up. I mean, that never happened. Okay, well, hold on. I found him. I got him. I found him. He is
I was not
playing...
expecting that. That was fantastic.
Oh, he is still with the White Sox. He's on their AAA team in Charlotte. He currently has a 705 OPS.
He's actively playing for them in AAA, and he can't be found on Google.
Baseball Reference. It took me a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then the getting Tyler Clippard back is kind of. I mean, they took Tyler Clippard, I think, to get him away from the Yankees and to maybe eat some of his salary. But really, this was about the prospects. None of these prospects ended up panning out, but it's still not the worst thing to move on from. I will say relatively more expensive players. Not that this is a huge trade, but it's still, I think, a good, a positive move for the White Sox here as they just, kind of open up space for the younger players, stock the farm up a little bit, and, get some money off the books. What do you think?
Sounds about right.
Suck my dick.
It's a money game.
Yep. The next couple trades as we finish out the trade deadline of 2017, not horribly interesting. They sent over cash considerations to the Mariners in exchange for John Machi, I'm not sure, and Mark Lau, two relief pitchers. No idea who they are. They acquired Ryan Cordell from the Milwaukee Brewers in exchange for Anthony Swarzak, who I think is still in baseball.
I would put money on it. Yeah.
Yes. He's currently with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And if you had made me guess that, I never would have. His ERA this season between the Royals and the Diamondbacks is 9.49.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
Ooh.
Oof is right, my friend. Oof is
that's
right.
Scary. Oh, that's scary.
He's 35. I think he's probably done after this year. Yeah. Sorry, Anthony. They also made a trade acquiring Casey Gillespie, the first baseman from the Tampa Bay Rays, for Dan Jennings, a relief pitcher. Neither of those names really, I think, mean all too much. And they closed out the trade deadline by acquiring AJ Puckett and Andre Davis from the Kansas City Royals in exchange for Melky Cabrera and $2.6 million to, I guess, cover the rest of Cabrera's contract. Any of those guys move the needle for you?
Not really.
Not really. Yeah. AJ Puckett is It currently plays for Atlanta in their double A team. 26, got 3.15 ERA in double A. So he's doing some work down there. But the rest of these are kind of is what they is style trades.
Melky Cabrera.
What about Melky?
I feel like he's just a meme at this point. I don't remember watching him when he was really all that great, but he's been around forever, or at least was around forever. And I don't know what is the correct opinion to hold of him. Like, it's hard to gauge this without knowing.
He is a corner outfielder. He was a heavy and slow corner outfielder who occasionally hit well. That was it. That's really the best I got. I remember him from his Yankees years. They were not great. And then now I have his baseball reference. Oh, whoa, they were okay. So his Yankees years are a lot worse than I remember. That's 68 OPS plus in 2008. I do not recall. Oh man. He ended up having
There's not a lot of 3-digit numbers there.
No. He had some really good seasons apparently. 2011, 2012, 2014, 2016. Surprisingly, 2018 he turned in some good stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was a fine player for a long time, and that is a major accomplishment when it comes to the world of baseball. So, hats off to you, Mr. Melky.
It's surprising to see a player that breaks out in his 6th year of Major League Baseball after playing a whole lot of complete seasons.
Yeah.
Amazing it didn't stand to the test of time.
Who'da thunk it? Who'da thunk it? All right. Well, let's get into the off season. Well, so a couple other waiver transactions that don't really matter. The Chicago got Steven Johnson from the Orioles on August 9th, Ryan Burr from the Diamondbacks August 11th. Tyler Clippard went to the Astros on the 14th of August. And then September rolled around and Chicago acquired Taquan Forbes from Texas in exchange for Miguel Gonzalez, who, again, these are relatively more insignificant trades. The offseason that year opened up with actually, hold on, before we get into the offseason, let's take a look at how that team shook out at the end of it. So the 2017 Chicago White Sox, again, in terms of their lineup going to be by plate appearance at that position that will determine how these lineups look. Their starting catcher that season, or the starting catcher they had with the most plate appearances, was Omar Narvaez. First baseman, still Jose Abreu. Second baseman, Yolmer Sanchez. Shortstop, Tim Anderson. Third baseman, Todd Frazier. Left fielder, Melky Cabrera. Center fielder, Adam Engel. Right fielder, Avisail Garcia. And DH, Matt Davidson. So some of these names we already know basically had left, but we're starting to see. I think it's this is going to be probably the most influx we'll see this lineup as we know that some turnover is a coming here. The starting pitching that season was Derek Holland, whom they had signed in the offseason, Miguel Gonzalez, Mike Pelfrey, James Shields, Jose Quintana, and Dylan Covey. Closer was David Robertson that season. So again, there's a lot of guys that we know are going to be gone once it comes time to look at the 2018 version of this team. So let's take a look at that 2017 offseason heading into the 2018 season. They really didn't have any exciting free agent signings. They signed James McCann to a 1-year deal, and they re-signed Miguel Gonzalez to a 1-year deal. Yeah, right. Wow. Woo-wee. And then in January, they signed Kelvin Herrera, who's a relief pitcher, to a 2-year and $18 million deal. And John Jay, who felt eternal at one point, to a 1-year, $4 million contract. Oh, my God. Oh, I totally forgot about the whole lot. Do you remember why they signed John Jay?
No.
They signed John Jay because he was the brother-in-law of Manny Machado.
Oh, right.
Remember that?
Yes.
They gave him $4 million just to try to get Machado to consider their team.
Oh, God, I remember that. I
totally fucking forgot about that.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, take that, White Sox, and all your play. Oh, They are going to the playoffs, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh well. So that was their offseason free
Why
agent
you make
signings.
me sad?
I make you sad because it's fun, buddy. I'm so sorry. They started off the offseason post-winter meetings with a bang. They ended up in a 3-team trade with the Royals and the Dodgers, in which the White Sox acquired Joaquin Soria, a relief pitcher, and Luis Avalon, a relief pitcher, and also $3 million. The Kansas City Royals acquired Trevor Oakes, who was a starting pitcher, and Eric Mejia, and the Dodgers acquired Scott Alexander and Jake Peter. And I can't confidently say I know any of these names offhand, except for Joaquin Soria. Do you feel like you do?
Mhm. I know Joaquin Soria.
Luis Avalon looks relatively familiar, so I'm going to look him up, but I don't think this is, even though it's a 3-team trade, I don't think I care.
Hey, 3 years after a trade and you acquire the only guy who you can even remotely resemble, that's the win. You don't need to be a scout to really kind of piece those together.
That's fair enough. Yeah, Joaquin Soria that season pitched 38 innings for the White Sox, a 2.56 ERA. That's pretty nice. All right.
Hey, can we not skip over the fact that in December, just prior to this, they drafted Yerman Mercedes, the first half champion of MLB baseball in the Rule 5 draft?
Oh, do you have their draft stuff up? Because I don't have that stuff up.
Oh, I just have the baseball reference page open, which has the draft stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at Spot Track. Corwin and I
The
have
spot
many
Did
tabs.
Spot
open.
Track have the Luis Robert signing on there?
No, because I think that's a different section because it's an international signing.
Got it. Well, they signed him this May of 2017. Yes.
All right, this works out. We have a new division of labor we're figuring out on the fly where you'll do drafts and free agent and international, and I've got trades
Sure.
and local signings, domestic transactions. That sounds still very shady. All right.
Oh boy.
So the rest of this season, really not too much interesting stuff happens at the top. They acquire Jose Rondon from the Padres in exchange for cash on January 10th. Their next trade is then also with the Padres when they get Diego Goris, third baseman. Do you know either of those names?
No.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure I don't. I'm going to double check that I don't know who's Jose Rondon is. No. Okay. He has a career -1 WAR in 4 seasons. I have no idea who this is. Actually, he played in 55 games for the White Sox that year, and I have no idea who this guy is. What? All right. Whatever. I'm completely
God.
thrown off. What?
We'll get there. We'll get there.
All right.
It's a tangent I will have to take us on just because of the absurdity and relevance.
I'm sure there's a bunch of one-player trades in here. I'm just going to list the players and the teams. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. The White Sox sent to Philadelphia Dean Anna, then a couple on the same day, a different trade. The Phillies send back over to the White Sox Ricardo Pinto. The White Sox send over to Milwaukee Tyler Saladino. If there's no return, it's just money. On April 19th, the White Sox acquire Trace Thompson from the A's. Then a couple weeks later, they acquire Todd Cunningham from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Then a couple months after that, they sent Brad Goldberg over to the Diamondbacks. And then we get
I will stop you there.
The Diamondbacks?
No, I will stop you before we get to the draft.
Okay.
So that was June 3rd, the Brad Goldberg trade. June 4th was the MVP draft. Where in the first round, 4th overall, they Madrigal.
That's right.
Now I know Nick Madrigal will come up later when we have these discussions. I just need to read off the list of players in the first round of this draft and some other key pieces to kind of highlight the relevance of this trade. So Casey Mize goes first overall, having a very nice year with the Tigers this year. Joey Bart goes number two catcher in all of the minors right now. Basically, as soon as Buster Posey retires, he's getting past that key to the city. Alex Boehm at number 3, having a pretty nice year last year with the Phillies and not nearly as good this year, but whatever. Then Nick Madrigal. And then Jonathan India, who's having a very nice season with the Reds.
Yeah.
Jared Kelenic, who's having a historically awful season with the Mariners, but at the same time was also a top 3 prospect in all of baseball. So there's hope there for sure. He's batting 147. That's really bad. He has like 150 plate appearances. It's bad.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Weathers, who is a top prospect pitching wise for the Padres. And then what I groaned about earlier, after Carter Stewart, who is didn't sign, but whatever. The Athletics drafted Kyler Murray.
Oh, that's right. That was this
Which
year.
At the time, it's like, all right, baseball drafts. Sure, I don't know much about it. It's even more of a dart throw than you would have in the NFL or other sports. But holy fucking shit, I can't believe they drafted him 9th overall.
Yeah.
Travis Swaggerty at 10. Grayson Rodriguez, I'm sorry. Logan Gilbert, Cole Winn, Matthew Liberatore, Jordan Adams, Brady Singer, Nolan Gorman, Trevor Larnach. There's so many. Nico Horner went 24. Tristan Costa, there are so many top prospects in this draft that were skipped over for a guy who was almost certainly playing football. What are you doing?
That's it.
What the fuck are you doing?
Welcome to Billy Beanball.
He wasn't even remotely close to that kind of prospect. He didn't even play baseball all that much.
Oh man, I was wondering.
It was just a side project for this guy.
I was wondering what you're going to stop us for, and I completely forgot that had happened. Man, this is a weird trip down memory lane because some of this shit we talked about on this podcast.
Yeah.
I remember our conversation about that on this podcast, and I completely once you take out the parameters in which you're typically viewing some events through, it is so hard to wrap your brain around them. I know that we're in that time period of White Sox baseball of baseball in general, and that was such a big story in ball at the time, and I completely forgot about it.
And I know we shit talked it at the time because obviously he was picking football, but it was also him surrounded by a bunch of prospects who, outside of Casey Mize, Joey Bart, we didn't know any of these people. I had never heard of anyone else in this draft. I didn't follow baseball nearly as close as I do now. It meant nothing to me. Now knowing and having that context and seeing what these players, what level of skill they were at, is fucking outrageous.
Man, I love baseball.
Oh boy.
All right, so let's keep it going. July 26th rolls around. We are in the midst of the trade deadline, and recently acquired Joakim Soria is heading over to the Milwaukee Brewers in exchange for Cody Medeiros and Wilber Perez. What does this mean for the White Sox? Basically fucking nothing, but they got prospects back in exchange for major league talent. You take that most days. Then they make a trade with the Yankees, where the Yankees acquired $1.5 million of international bonus pool money in exchange for Caleb Fair. Heading over to the White Sox, again, doesn't mean too much. And then the White Sox make a very similar trade with the Rays, in which they acquired Hunter Shriver. August rolls around. They make a trade sending Luis Avalon, the other guy that we felt like we almost kind of knew from that offseason three-way trade, over to the Phillies in exchange for Felice Polino. And then later on, they make another trade with the Brewers where they get Brian Connell and Johan Dominguez in exchange for Javier Cedeno. And that takes us all the way through to the end of the season. Your 2018 Chi-Town White Sox would finish the season as such. We still have Omar Narvaez as a starting catcher, although we know he won't be lasting very long there, as these Brewer happy trades are likely to continue, or signings at the very least. At first base, we still have Jose Abreu there, still doing himself very well. doing very well for himself. We have Yohan Moncada now slotted in at second base. Shortstop still Tim Anderson, third baseman Yolmer Sanchez. That infield is starting to look very, very familiar. That outfield is still pretty in flux, as the left fielder that year was Nicky Delmonico. Center fielder was Adam Engel. Right fielder Avisail Garcia. DH Matt Davidson. Their starting rotation by the end of the season by innings pitched was James Shields, Reynaldo Lopez, Lucas Giolito, Dylan Covey, and Carlos Rodon. Their closer that year was Joaquim Soria until he got traded. And you look at that rotation, you look at that infield, and all of a sudden you see these trades like they're making an impact on the major league level rather quickly, as Reynaldo Lopez, Lucas Giolito, and Dylan Covey were all acquired via the trade. I've said Dylan Covey's name a little bit more confidently than I probably meant to, because I don't remember if he did already, even though I just read these names moments ago. But who the fuck knows?
Who the fuck knows, indeed? Because it certainly
actually,
is not me.
He's not listed here, so I don't think they acquired him via trade.
Really?
Yeah, I think I made that one up, Corwin.
If you didn't say anything, nobody would have caught it.
Oh, no. That's okay. All right, so then let's take a look into our next upcoming offseason. And this one, the fucking White Sox are looking to make a splash. They ended up finishing that 2018 season in fourth place again, going 62-100. But no one makes the White Sox lose 100 games twice. They'll do that once and then move on. That's not how they roll. We must continue to grow in 2019. And so the White Sox went out and made a slew of signings, starting with Yasmani Grandal signing a 4-year, $73 million contract in November of 2019. They were not done there. They then signed Gio Gonzalez to a 1-year, $5 million contract in December. 2 days later, shoring up the starting rotation a little bit more by signing Dallas Keuchel to a 3-year, $55 million contract, and then filling out their DH position with Edwin Encarnacion, a 1-year, $12 million contract. A couple other minor signings in Steve Sisak.
What year are we in?
2019. We're going into the 2019 season. So this is the 2019. Oh, hold on. December 2019. Oh, I went too far. Oh, no. Sorry, buddy.
Encarnacion was January 2020.
Yeah.
I was December 2019. Yeah.
Yeah, I skipped an entire year.
That happened last year, too, where I was confused. Yeah. Like John Jay was signed this offseason you were talking about.
Yeah, because...
Here, go off of this list.
No, I see where I made my crucial error.
Well, I'm just saying.
Whoopsie daisy.
There you go. Boom, boom, boom.
Anywho, so then this offseason... Oh, fuck. All right. This offseason was Kelvin Herrera and John Jay. That's and Yasmani Grandal? No. Just Kelvin Herrera and John Jay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. I've caught myself. We're all good. In terms of trades, they traded Justin Yurchak to the Dodgers in exchange for Manny Banuelos. No idea who that is. And now here goes Omar Narvaez getting sent over to the Seattle Mariners in exchange for Alex Colomé. We'll come back to that in a second. Let's finish out the offseason trade moves. They end up.
It's pronounced Colombe.
Is it? I guess there's no accent over the E.
I have no idea.
I just wanted to be a dick.
Yes.
Did make you feel like a big man?
It did.
Make you feel like a fucking big guy?
Mostly because I am a very big man.
I mean, you're tall, but are you big?
Are you asking, or is my wife asking?
What?
What?
I have no response to that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, okay. So anyway, finishing out their offseason trades, they acquired Ivan Nova from the Pirates in exchange for Yordi Rosario. They then sent over Jordan Romano, who made a big impression on the Blue Jays earlier this season, over to Texas, the Rangers, in exchange for cash. They acquired Yonder Alonso from Cleveland in exchange for Alex Call. They acquired Paulo Orlando from the Dodgers in exchange for cash. Oh shit, that was May. So I blew past. I'm so disorganized. I blew right past the end of the winter signings. So Corwin, a lot of these don't matter.
Yes.
Let's start with one of the ones that's actually interesting. What do you think about this Alex Colome, however we're supposed to pronounce his name, for Nomar Narvaez, who had been a very productive member of the White Sox team in this last season with the White Sox, posting a 119 OPS, getting sent over to Seattle. And Alex Colome, it is Colome. Suck my dick. It is Colome. Bitch. Coming off of also a very productive season in Seattle, a 2.53 ERA that season.
I mean, having no opinion of these men before this occurred and having to just look at statistics, he had quite a good season last year, despite only pitching in 22 innings. Had a 5.58 ERA plus. Good job, Colome. I mean, by all means, both of these guys seem like similar quality of players, with Narvaez being a all-star, somewhat above average catcher, and Colome being a somewhat above average relief pitcher. Granted, Narvaez seems to have a better deal or better production and a better whatever. Neither of them have exploded positively or negatively since, and has been valuable for what they do. I can't really argue for or against that.
Yeah, I think
actually, Colome has a -1 WAR this year. I take it back. He's been awful. Kill him.
Yeah,
Eject him
well,
to the sub.
he went to Minnesota, and Minnesota's had pitching problems out the wazoo. So I'm not even going to
Yeah.
necessarily blame that on him. Really, I think part of that analysis also has to be the fact that they signed James McCann this offseason that we're talking about here. And so is the value that playing Omar Narvaez over James McCann, is that value higher than playing James McCann and Alex Colome? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. And clearly the White Sox made the determination, which I would think is probably the right one, that you gain more value from having Alex Colome and James McCann than just Omar Narvaez. So
I would agree.
Yeah, seems like a fair kind of fair move there. We then take this into the Ivan Nova trade. Yordi Rosario, he played for the Pirates. Do you know that name?
Say it again.
Yordi Rosario.
No.
Well, in 2019, he was in the Pittsburgh farm system in the Appalachian League. And that's rookie ball. He posted a 2.87 ERA. And then I don't see anything for him in 2020 because there was no minor league ball. Does that make sense? And this season, he's magically appeared in the Los Angeles rookie ball system with a cool 9 ERA. Oh, he played in one game and allowed 1 earned run. Okay. So Yordi Rosario basically has not amounted to anything in major league level. So this is nothing but a good trade for the White Sox, basically, I would say. Especially since Ivan Nova ended up pitching, from what I recall, pretty decently for them that year. Oh, he started the most games in all of baseball that season. Yeah, so he played very well for them. He had a 4.72 ERA, but he pitched a ton of innings for a team that needed someone to throw innings. That is a good trade.
Touche.
Okay. Yeah, Jordan Romano, who gives a shit? All right, so then we get into the season. Our 2019 Chicago White Sox did not make a lot of moves, which makes sense. They don't have a lot of guys that really are going to garner too much attention on the open market at this point in time. They traded away a lot of their marquee guys, and now it's about development. So their transactions from the during the season trades amounts to just 2. They traded for Paulo Orlando, whose name I read accidentally earlier, whom they acquired from the Dodgers in exchange for cash. And then on July 31st, at the end of the trade deadline, they acquired Joseph Herensky and Ray Castro from the Rangers in exchange for Nate Jones. And when I tell you I don't know any of those 3 names, I don't know who the fuck these people are.
I feel like I know Nate Jones, but solely because it is a very weird, very common name.
Yeah, Nate Jones sounds like a generic made-up white man name.
Correct. Which a lot do, but specifically that one.
Currently on the Dodgers from the looks of it. Also, he's 35. He's been in baseball for 10 years. I have no idea who this is.
I am very much with you. I have no idea. I've never
He
heard that
played.
before in my
He
life.
played for the White Sox for 8 seasons. I
Yeah.
have
Okay.
no idea who the fuck this is. I mean, not that I'm like a huge diehard White Sox fan. I like the team, but like, man, sorry, Nate. Whoops, my bad. So anyway, so
That's a
for
solid. My bad, dude.
my bad, bro. So that's it. That's all the 2019 White Sox ended up doing. They ended the season that year at 72 and 89, third in the AL Central, move on up in the standings, as they in the 2019 passed Kansas City, finishing just behind Cleveland and Minnesota, finishing 21 games behind Cleveland, and then 30 games basically behind Minnesota. But still moving up in the standings, wanting to make a big old push. That offseason, now I can get my signings right. They tried to sign, they did sign, I should say, Yasmani Grandal, Gio Gonzalez, Dallas Keuchel, Edwin Encarnacion, Steve Cishek, not Adam. That's gonna be the 2020 signings. See, that's the thing. It just keeps going, and I have to check the dates and remember where the season starts. It's my own fault. I have no one to blame but myself. Although I'd love to blame someone else, but still. So Yasmani Grandal. So they only had James McCann to a 1-year deal. So they're upgrading massively catcher with Yaz, getting two reliable starting pitchers, and there was talk about whether or not the Dallas Keuchel signing was an overpay, which I think overpays exist, but under the right circumstances. I don't think they can exist in certain circumstances. And if you're trying to compete and you haven't spent a lot of money doing so, and you're trying to make a push, well, that's going to involve you spending money. Right. Only one way about it. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
What's a good recent example? I'm trying to think of one.
Anthony Rendon to the Angels, maybe, but he was actually good. Like, he warranted that. He's just been hurt.
He was an MVP, yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. I mean, granted, we could say the same thing about Dallas Keuchel. He was a Cy Young, but whatever.
Everyone knew that was not the person who should have won that Cy Young.
Yeah. Maybe you could say, well, apparently if you're Brody Van Wagen, you could say Zach Wheeler. But Zach Wheeler is proving that he is worth every fucking penny of that contract. So
correct.
Maybe Francisco Lindor, but he's also a very good player too. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, like before either. That, yeah, you would. It's tough. Like, it's really tough to see like a really ridiculous one that jumps out, at least in baseball.
Yeah, at least that I can think of off the top. Damn. Yeah, no, I'm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I got someone on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. Oh well, moving on. So that's Dallas Keuchel. Edwin Encarnacion, he's been a great hitter for a long time. Him and fucking Nelson Cruz were often talked about in the same sentence as being like, look at how old they are and look at how they still hit. Obviously Nelson Cruz has won that battle, even though he is like 5 years older than Edwin Encarnacion. But fucking still, man. Encarnacion was coming off of a pretty solid year in 2019, a 131 OPS plus. He played half a year for Seattle, half a year for New York. So fair enough assumption. It's fair enough signing for the White Sox, trying to squeeze whatever they could out of him. And then Steve Cishek, who gives a fuck? Then that who gives a fuck can also be applied to Adam Eaton.
They signed Steve Cishek and Connor Sadzik. Cool. So one was on January 9th, one was on January 14th. I really truly believe some intern fucked up with like an email and they did not realize it for 5 days.
That's like, I told Ethan once that the Phillies had signed Asdrubal Cabrera, and he was like, wasn't he already on the team? And I was like, oh no, you must be thinking of Odubel Herrera. Because there was a point in time when the Phillies had Asdrubal Cabrera and Odubel Herrera, and that's a hilarious combo.
It absolutely is. Those are the things that just make baseball what it is.
God.
Every
So
every name is just a random letter generator.
with like an accent. Yeah.
Yes.
Nate Jones? Yeah, sure. That sounds like a guy who probably
Yep.
exists. Osdrubal Cabrera, Odubel Herrera, Tom Cabrera, who knows? All right. In terms of offseason trade acquisitions that year, they ended up acquiring Jonah Reynolds from the White Sox in exchange for Wellington Castillo, the catcher. They also acquired Nomar Mazara from the Rangers a few weeks later in exchange for Steele Walker. That's a hell of a name, Steele Walker. A prior trade acquisition mentioned earlier, they sent over to San Francisco Luis Alexander Basabe, the outfielder, in exchange for cash. Oh, wait, shit. Sorry. That's also in the middle of the regular season. So that was their only two offseason trades, was the Jonah Reynolds and Nomar Mazara trades. So that's it. That was their only
Groundbreaking. Yeah.
that was their only trades.
Mm-hmm.
So then they played the whole season. They didn't have any trade deadline stuff. They had a couple trades after the trade deadline, for players who end up making it to waivers. So that's the Luis Alexander Basabe trade, and then another trade with the Pittsburgh Pirates on August 28th when they acquired Gerard Dyson in exchange for international bonus pool money.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah, so really all's quiet on the Western Front here. Gerard Dyson ended up playing in 11 games for the White Sox that season. He got 3 hits in 10 at-bats. That is a batting average of 300, an OPS of 300, a slugging of 300, and an OPS of 600, an OBP of 300, and an OPS plus of 67. Way to go, Gerard.
Way to go.
The 2019 White Sox ended up shaking out. I guess that would have been the 2020 White Sox then. Yeah, 2020 White Sox. My bad. I gotta start closing some of these tabs after we get through the seasons. So that would be right. I'm not wrong, right? Yeah, it's the 2020 White Sox.
I can't even follow. I've given up.
We've gone through so many years. It's the 2020 White Sox. So in addition to all those things happening, Luis Robert ends up being called up. Eloy Jimenez ends up being called up. And so by the end of their season, by plate appearances, the most their starters were catcher Yasmani Grandal, Jose Abreu holding it down at first base. Nick Madrigal ends up getting called up as well, one of their draftees from just a couple years prior, playing second. Tim Anderson at short, Yohan Moncada at third, Eloy Jimenez in left, Luis Robert in center, Nomar Mazara in right, and Edwin Encarnacion DHing. The rotation ends up shaking out as Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, Dylan Cease, Dane Dunning, and Reynaldo Lopez, with their closer being Alex Colomé. Now, Corwin Heller, tell me about this team. Is this a pretty mean team?
Very good. I'm sorry for everyone's ears.
So this team makes the playoffs. 2020 shortened season. Yeah. Got it. They finished 35-25 in a 60-game season. But still, this team makes the playoffs. And honestly, I think even if you extrapolate this shit out to a full season, this team probably has the ability to hold for a while. Obviously, you got some good performances out of some players who, maybe weren't true talent to that level, looking at Dane Dunning in specific. But, still, they tied the Cleveland team in the standings in win-loss and tiebreakers. So they technically they finished behind Cleveland, I guess, via tiebreaker, but finished the same record as them, 35-25, and that's just one game back of Minnesota. So they were really in the mix that whole year. And you look at the construction of these players, and it's such a nice and interesting mix of free agent acquisitions and free agent signings. So you have Yasmani Grandal holding it down a catcher, free agent signing that made a pretty immediate impact with this 112 OPS plus. Jose Abreu, who Corbin, can you search that for me? I have to imagine he was signed by the White Sox. Like I don't know if drafted Jose Abreu, because he's a lifetime White Sox. So I have to imagine that he had been acquired by the White Sox, or that's his OG team.
His OG team was signed by the Chicago White Sox as an amateur free agent on October 29th, 2013.
Okay, there you go. So you got basically, we'll just say drafted for those types of guys. So you got free agent signing in Monty Grandal, Jose Abreu at first base, who you drafted, Nick Madrigal at second base, who you drafted, Tim Anderson, was he also a draft pick of the White Sox?
Wow. He's as a defector from Cuba. Sorry to cut you off. Jose Abreu signed a 6-year, $68 million deal in 2013.
Love
That's
that for him.
big. That's big.
Love
Sorry, I missed everything you just said.
Tim Anderson, was he drafted by the White Sox?
I want to say yes.
I also want to say yes. It's the only team he's ever played for professionally. Or in the majors, I should say.
Drafted in the first round of the 2013 MLB draft.
So look at that. Your almost entire infield, first, second, and short, all essentially drafted by you. Obviously, Jose Abreu, slightly different, but for all intents and purposes. Yoel Moncada, who you have acquired via trade. Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, Nomar Mazara, who you acquired via trade. All of whom.
Well, Luis Robert, they signed.
Sorry, Luis Robert. They signed. So in the same boat as Jose Abreu.
Is it Robert again?
So I when I listened to the Field of Dreams game, everybody said Robert, so I'm going to Robert.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to assume I'm wrong. And then rounding it out, Edwin Encarnacion, a free agent signing, and that's really, I mean, because you can't buy teams, and it's not a matter of spending money. It's that it's just not going to work out for you. If you throw all of your money into signing teams, you're going to eventually sign. You're going to get to a point where you're throwing money at players who aren't worth the money and aren't going to contribute meaningful at bats or innings pitched to your team. Settling all of it into hoping to luck in draft picks, aka what the Orioles are doing right now, isn't going to help you get any better any quicker, because those guys are going to take a lot of time to actually mature and get better in the minor league system, and that process will take years for you to do. And if you don't end up turning any of your attention towards international talent, well, I mean, that's essentially going to the free agent market, but or essentially going to a combination of the draft and free agent market where you can get guys that can contribute in almost a draft-like situation where it's kind of controlled in the way that free agency isn't, because you have that international bonus pool money that you can't spend an unlimited amount of it like you could if it was just regular free agency, but it's not regular free agency. So there's the fact that the White Sox have done this with their starting lineup and been able to find really effectual players in all phases of their development process, it's amazing.
You can focus on the draft, you can focus on free agency, you can focus on trades, but you're not going to be able to build a contender with only one. The White Sox are just really good at all three.
Yeah, and this speaks to obviously not just the GM and the manager, but the player development people, the scouts, pitching coaches, hitting coaches at the minor league level. Like, this is really a systematic example of success here. Plus the leadership on the top, having Jose Abreu and Tim Anderson really like holding down that locker room from day one in terms of what this rebuild will look like for the White Sox. It really can't be understated. Absolutely. And then we turn our attention to the pitching side of things. You got Lucas Giolito, who they traded for, Dallas Keuchel, whom they signed for in free agency, Dylan Cease, Dane Dunning, and Ronaldo Lopez, that they all traded for as well, and Alex Colomé. So, I mean, you're just also looking at, just really, really good scouting, good trades, good pitch development. And, you shut out some money for Dallas Keuchel, but he ended up the most recent season he made the playoffs just last year with a 1.99 ERA and 63.1 innings, which was the second most innings on the team. It's hard to argue. Obviously, this season we'll get into a little bit because it's the most recent one, but it's hard to argue with at least that level of success and not having to start someone who would potentially be significantly worse in his stead. So that has a lot of value.
Absolutely.
Do you hear the ice cream truck going by my apartment?
I absolutely do, and I really want ice cream. I might go get a milkshake after this.
All right, I'm buddy. All right, so that brings us to where we're going to be today.
Mark's calling me.
Mark Cohen?
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take a look. Let's get a little bit farther down in the process and see where those White Sox are today. So the offseason, the 2020 offseason heading into the 2021 season, the White Sox ended up acquiring Lance Lynn from the Texas Rangers on December 8th, 5 years and 2 days after they traded away their ace Chris Sale to the Boston Red Sox. They are now in the market for high-level starting pitching and are acquiring Lance Lynn from the Texas Rangers in exchange for Dane Dunning and Avery Weems. That's a hilarious name. I'm sorry, Avery. Weems is a hilarious last name. And man, if that is not so symbolic of their turnaround, I don't know what is. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they did as good of a rebuild as you could possibly ask for. I mean, they weren't perfect all the way through, but boy, they did so many things right. If you had to give me your favorite and least favorite transaction out of these, could you?
Ooh, okay. My favorite one is probably the Adam Eaton trade.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, pound for pound, just for value's sake, because obviously getting a good return in the Chris Sale trade probably isn't as hard because Chris Sale is obviously a top level talent. So that if you're not getting something good in return, then you're just like you're an idiot. It's not even like you did a good job if you get good stuff in return. If you didn't, you'd be a fucking moron. The Adam Eaton trade, obviously, he was very good at the time, so you'd expect to get good stuff back. But they ended up getting back. I mean, so they got Lucas Giolito, who's top 3 starter for them. Reynaldo Lopez, who is a combination back end starter or middle reliever for them, who's like very good. He's like their Chad Green, I guess, when he's not starting. And then Dane Dunning, who they turned in to Lance Lynn. I mean, that is just an unmatched value.
Right.
In terms of their worst trade for me, there's nothing really bad. Maybe the Todd Frazier, David Robertson, Tommy Kahnle trade, because they just didn't really get anything back there. Obviously, like I said, there's an element of getting payroll off your books or, opening up space for your call-ups to play that is good, but I don't know. It's just, in terms of improving the roster situation. What about you?
Well, it's hard to disagree with either one of your points. I think their best and worst trade is trading Fernando Tatis for James Shields.
I knew you were going to bring this shit up eventually.
Yeah, no, you had to.
I knew you were.
Because we are talking all positive about the White Sox, and they traded away the MVP of baseball for the next 14 years.
The most valuable MVP of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Corwin actually asked if we could start with the Fernando Tatis Jr. trade instead of the Chris Sale trade, and I told him it didn't make sense in the timeline, and he was sad. So I was expecting this to happen.
I got it in there.
That's you got it in there.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Use a bitch.
I am.
All right, so then let's get into this. So the Lance Lynn trade, we got that. They then acquired Tyler Neslany from Atlanta for future considerations. They then acquired Davey Gruyan, catcher from Tampa for cash considerations. These are all midseason, I should say. So Lance Lynn was the only trade that they had in the offseason. God, I hate that I keep doing this to myself. I have no one to blame but myself. They also signed in the offseason of that season. They also signed Adam Eaton to a 1-year deal that he ended up, he's currently on the Angels. Liam Hendricks they signed to a 3-year, $54 million contract, and they re-signed Carlos Rodon to a 1-year, $3 million contract, and he would end up throwing a no-hitter just a few months later. So then during the course of the season was when they acquired Tyler Nelsony on July 12th. July 15th, they acquired Davey Gruyan. July 29th, really when the trade deadline was heating up a lot, we talked about these next ones a few times. They acquired Cesar Hernandez from the Cleveland team in exchange for Connor Pilkington. They acquired Ryan Tepera from Chicago from the Cubs in exchange for Bailey Horn. And then their big blockbuster, it was when they sent Nick Madrigal and Cody Hewer over to the Cubs in exchange for Craig Kimbrell. So as it stands today, looking at the 2021 Chicago White Sox roster, they're currently, as I said at the top of this show, in first place by a good 10-game margin. They're 20 games over 500, 75 and 55. Their current roster is, now that he's returned, Yasmani Grandal at catcher, Jose Abreu at first. Nick Madrigal still has the most plate appearances for them at second base, but I guess their current second baseman would be Cesar Hernandez. Mm-hmm. Then Tim Anderson at short. Yoan Moncada has been hurt a few times, but he is still, by plate appearances, their starting third baseman. Andrew Vaughn, who they drafted, worked his way up through the minors, got called up and has been playing left field for them.
Two-time Golden Spikes winner.
Two-time Golden Spikes winner Andrew Vaughn. Luis Robert has been holding it down with a 145 OPS plus in center field, been playing some very good defense to boot. Adam Eden, by plate appearances, is still their starting right fielder, although Eloy Jimenez.
He was a finalist twice, though.
That's good enough for me. Eloy Jimenez, though, is back, so that is going to be his spot moving forward. He's been very good. Yermin Mercedes, by plate appearances, is also their DH, but that's been a rotating spot. Brian Goodwin's been there a little bit. Jake Lamb's been there a little bit. These guys that kind of play all over a little bit, while the other guys have been resting and, have occupied the DH spot. So looking at that roster, for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to say it again. For all intents and purposes, Yasmani Grandal, Yasmani Grandal, Jose Abreu at first, Cesar Hernandez at second, Tim Anderson at short, Yoan Moncada at third, Andrew Vaughn in left, Luis Robert in center, Eloy Jimenez in right, and then Brian Goodwin as your DH, or Leury Garcia. Who gives a shit? What do you think about that lineup?
It's a good lineup.
That's all you got?
Yeah, that's all I got. I mean, what more can I add in? I mean, it's self-evident looking at those names, looking at that list of this team that's been put together. Like, it's one of the best teams in baseball. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it gets better when you look at their starting rotation too. By innings pitched, I would have expected this to be Lance Lynn, but Lance Lynn has the fourth most innings pitched out of the rotation. That's actually kind of wild. Yeah, right. It feels like he just chucks 7 innings every start. I don't think so. He must though. He must have been hurt because he only has 23 starts as compared to Giolito and Cease's 26 starts. So he's missing at least 3 starts. But the rotation has been Lucas Giolito, 3.68 ERA, Dylan Cease, 3.92 ERA, Dallas Keuchel, who's pitching to a 5 ERA this season. It's been a rough year for Dallas Keuchel. Lance Lynn, a 2.2 ERA, Carlos Rodon, a 2.43 ERA. And out of the bullpen, their closer has been Liam Hendricks, who's been phenomenal with his 3.25 ERA. And now he basically is like platooned with Craig Kimbrell, who has been bad for the White Sox so far with his 7.15 ERA.
Really bad.
Yeah. But he has been good overall this season, so you'd expect it to smooth out a little bit. When he was with the Cubs before coming over to the White Sox, his ERA was 0.49. So his ERA for the season overall is 2.06. So you'd expect that 7.15 ERA to come on down. They still also have coming out of the bullpen Garrett Crotchet, who's having a good season. Ryan Tepera, who's been having a good season for them. Reynaldo Lopez, who's back from injury and been phenomenal with his 1.59 ERA. So the bullpen's looking really good as well. So really just pitching wise, White Sox have been doing pretty fucking all right. What do you think about
since arguably the pitching would be the worst aspect of their team, seeing as their offense is just so good?
Yeah,
it's pretty good. Especially when healthy. They haven't even been healthy all season.
Yeah, and again, whoever is healthy all season, but it's just wild to see this type of turnaround from them. I mean, they are obviously they're not the best team in baseball. That's I probably still reserved for the Dodgers at this point in time, or maybe the Giants. I don't want to say the Yankees because that seems a little bit too homerish. I don't think you can really pick an AL team for that because the AL seems a little bit too competitive for that top spot, between like the Rays, the Astros, the Yankees, and the White Sox. But the White Sox still are forming a very, very good team in a division where you don't have to be necessarily phenomenal to kind of hold on forever,
Right. Before we move on, just to mention it, we talked about Andrew Vaughn and his 2018 Golden Spikes Award list. The hit rate for like the correlation between MLB success and winning the Golden Spikes Award is ludicrous.
What
Like
is it?
in for the Heisman Trophy, like it's a fairly consistent, fairly accurate line. But just going backwards, Kevin Kopps this year, Adley Rushman, Andrew Vaughn, Brendan McKay, Kyle
Damn.
Lewis, Andrew Benintendi, AJ Reed, Chris Bryant, Mike Zanino, Trevor Bauer, Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburg, Buster Posey, David Price, Tim Lincecum, Alex Gordon, Jared Weaver, Ricky Weeks, Khalil Green, Mark Pryor, Kip Boaknight, Jason Jennings, Pat Burrell, JD Drew, guys I don't know just as well, but Jason Veritek, Phil Nevin, Robin Ventura, Jim Abbott, Will Clark, Terry Francona. Why not? Bob Horner. Just wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That it's something that is like, oh yeah, obviously the best player in college is going to be a good baseball player, but in every other league, there's guys who win the award that don't turn out great, that don't end up carrying over to professional level. This is just nearly guaranteed to do something positive in baseball. Like Andrew Benintendi is not an all-star every year. He's still a good baseball player. He's still a valuable player. You just also happen to have the Bryce Harper's, Buster Posey's, Tim Lincecum's in there who just take over.
Right.
So yeah,
So shout out to Andrew Vaughn.
Andrew Vaughn, a lot of faith in him.
So let's take a look at this turnaround from stats perspective, just kind of very surface level, where they fell, past tense, I guess, pitching and hitting wise compared to the league. So 2016, when this rebuild started, their team ERA for that year was 4.12, which was 13th best in all of baseball. So that's
Better
the
than
year,
the Padres right now.
huh?
Better than the Padres right now.
Oh, well, that's not hard. 14th best. Sorry, I misspoke. And that's when they still had Chris Sale on the team, and they hadn't done a teardown or anything yet. By WRC plus, the White Sox were 15th in all baseball at 97. So they're being in the middle isn't necessarily a death sentence, but if your team is old and the concern is a fall off to any of your guys, or you don't have a great farm system to start replenishing some of the talent that's up top, it could be concerning. So the fact that they also chose to tear down there, in addition to the fact, like Corwin said much earlier in the episode, that Chris Sale kind of wanted to be out, is not necessarily a surprise. And again, in retrospect, likely the right thing to do for their situation.
Oh, absolutely.
So then let's go on and tune into 2017. And now we're in full teardown mode, right? This is the team that won 67 games, 67 and 95, barely avoiding a 100 loss season. So that team, let's see, where are you, White Sox? Finished 25th in ERA. So they fell a good 12 spots with a 4.78 team ERA. Man, the teams behind them, the Marlins, the Orioles, the Mets, the Reds, and the Tigers, most of those teams still make sense if you said that today, except the Reds. But so that's also hilarious. And if you look at their team WRC plus, they were actually still 15th in baseball. They lost 2 points off the WRC plus, but still managed to finish kind of right there in the middle with a 95 WRC plus for the team. So they're hitting showing some promise, but that pitching takes a major step back. But again, you traded away your ace. You traded away a couple more pieces. You acquired some young guys. It's not. I guess it is to be expected. I was going to say it's not unexpected, but it is to be expected. You don't want to put that any type of undue pressure on your team in those types of circumstances. Now we get into 2018, and this is where it's going to get even rougher. And they have yet to bottom out, but they will in this season. This is their 100-loss season when they go 62 and an even 100. Their team ERA that season was 26th in all of baseball. So the ERA gets worse as a team, 4.85, but they only lose one spot That Miami jumps them. They finished better than only the Toronto Blue Jays that season, Texas Rangers, Kansas City Royals, and Baltimore Orioles. And my God, we're going to have to talk about the Orioles in this type of deep dive at some point because holy fuck.
Not this episode.
Not this episode. But my God, I can't keep being at the bottom like this. Their WRC plus got worse as well, 92. It has fallen 3 more points from this last season, and they dropped them down 5 spots in the standings. So now they're 20th overall in MLB in WRC plus. And like I said previously, 26th in pitching. So they're bad at pitching, they're bad at hitting, but wait, 2019 is a coming. Things are going to go slightly up. This season is when they'll finish 3rd in the AL Central instead of 4th. They'll be passing the Royals, and they'll win 10 more games than they did in their previous season. So, in terms of pitching, as a team, as I keep coughing into the microphone, they managed to cobble together a worse ERA, but better in comparison to the rest of the league, a 4.91 ERA, but we are firmly in a nice juicy ball season. And so that's actually good for 22nd in baseball as compared to 26, as every team below them, the 7, or I guess 8 worst teams in baseball by ERA, all had an over 5 ERA. Okay, Corwin, you want to guess who had the worst ERA as a team in all of baseball that season?
Who?
Give me a guess.
The Orioles.
The Orioles. Oh my God, it's so fucking sad, man. Yeah. So the White Sox 22nd overall in team ERA, and if we go to over to WRC plus, they move up a couple spots in that respect as well, finishing with basically the same WRC plus though of 92. So some signs of life. Clearly, they bottomed out from what they had been going through in terms of the rebuild, and obviously you want to be a little bit positive on this and say that, the only place they have to go is up. Maybe they found their talent floor, so to speak. We don't think we can be worse than this. That might be an optimistic thought for certain teams, especially certain teams going through a rebuild. But at the same time, it has to be true to some respect, that you have players on your team. They can only be so bad.
It is true. You do have players on your team.
And they can only be so bad. So now we're going to get into 2020, and they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to go 35 and 25, and they made a bunch of fancy free agent acquisitions, and let's see how that pans out for them. So they were 22nd in ERA, or 23rd in team ERA in 2019. In 2020, they finished 6th in team ERA, jumping 16 spots in the standings, finishing a full run better than they did in 2019 at 3.81. The only teams with a better ERA than them that season were the Oakland A's, the Minnesota Twins, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Cleveland baseball team, and the best ERA went to the Dodgers that season. So a huge jump forward in team ERA from the White Sox that season. And where did they finish hitting-wise? Also 6th, as they take another colossal step forward in hitting, finishing with a team WRC plus of 113, which is 16 points better than they were in 2016. So really a full about face. Sorry, I said 26. I meant 6. No, I said 16. It's a full 21 points better than their bottomed out WRC plus. So, I mean, this right here has to be some really good vindication, even if it's a short season, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you got to feel pretty confident about what your front office has been doing at this point. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
All right. So then
how can you lose confidence?
Yeah. I mean, like, if we've seen the Cleveland team try to cobble together winning teams on the fly, and especially in the wake of their World Series appearance. The Cubs try to do the same thing. We've seen the Orioles try to rebuild this entire time as well. The second they traded away Manny Machado, like, we could basically actually start the Orioles from the same fucking starting point from when they traded Manny Machado to the Dodgers. And man, it'll be a different fucking story.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the White Sox actually doing it, So let's get into this season. So as it stands as of today, the White Sox team ERA is better than it was last season, but it is lower in the standings. As their team ERA is in 2021, eighth in all of baseball, a 3.75 team ERA. Wow, the Padres have a better ERA. Is that possible?
What are the dates that are set?
This is 2021, just all of 2021.
Uh, sure. I mean, our ERA was pretty good to start the year.
Yeah, it's 3.73. Is that right? Hold on.
That sounds
I
right. It's definitely not right if you just look at the past, month, 2 months.
I mean, I guess so. Hold on. I'm just cross-referencing this. Give me teams, you bitch. Against baseball reference for the Padres. Standard batting, standard pitching, San Diego. Yeah, that's right. Wow, 3.71. Way to go, Padres. I guess it all just seems worse than it is. So anyway, so a better ERA than they had last season, but lower in the standings because there's just more teams that had better ERAs. That's the way it goes. So eighth overall in baseball for team ERA with 3.75 ERA. And a step back in terms of raw WRC plus, but a huge increase in the standings as the White Sox are currently the second best hitting team in all of baseball with a 109 WRC plus, 9 points behind the Astros for first and tied with Toronto. But overall, second best WRC plus in baseball's pretty fucking good.
Yes, it
And
is.
I mean, here they are, two back-to-back seasons, top 10 hitting and pitching. And it's about to be their first time in back-to-back postseasons in their fucking history. It's fucking here, man.
Are you expecting them to win the World Series now or like just the next 5 years?
Actually, you know what? That's an interesting question. What do you think? Because I think we would say whether you think this team is going to win the World Series or not. This is definitely the World Series window. You know, it's that big playoff
Yes.
window. What do you think the size of this window is based on how they built this roster with, having young talent and all that, but definitely also having some major contributions from older free agent signings?
I mean, if you truly are going to open up the checkbook for guys like Jimenez, guys like Robert, the core starters on this team, you could keep this window open for 10 years. I don't know if they necessarily will, but at the same time, the aspects of them acquiring talent, trading for talent, signing them, drafting them has been so consistent over the past 5 years outside of the Fernando Tatis trade that there shouldn't be any reason to doubt the fact that they could keep it going for a full 10 years. The window will grow and shrink, based off of the season and, health and whether certain guys leave and who you can replace them with, things like that. But you have Jimenez there, you have Robert there, Robert there, you have all these other, Andrew Vaughn there. Your offensive core is going to be there for a long time. They're so young. Keep it going.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if their playoff or World Series window or whatever followed a similar trajectory to maybe like the Nationals. Because my first instinct was like, what would it take for them to have a Dodgers like run and for them to have a Dodgers like playoff consistent make the playoff run? It would require Dodgers level of ownership willing to spend money, which just doesn't happen with every team. But
And
the
also like
Nationals,
10 years of just turning into the Dodgers front office and just being able to amass not just talent at the major league level or AAA, but every single layer of coaching, players, development, everything.
right?
They're just on another level.
They really are. But at the same time, the White Sox are showing some really good signs of being able to do stuff like that. So they might be Dodgers light, which makes me think maybe a little bit more Nationals-esque, where they're big players that come up through the system end up really being big players for them. We saw it with Bryce Harper before he ended up going to Philly. We're seeing it with Juan Soto now. And then they made just, very good free agent acquisitions. Kurt Suzuki was great for them. Max Scherzer was obviously great for them. Fucking Anthony Rendon. Actually, did they draft Anthony Rendon?
I want to say yes, but I will double check.
Ooh, yeah. This is a good question.
Do 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 do.
So I
do, do.
definitely don't know much about Anthony Rendon, but I could fuck off. All right,
Anthony Rendon was drafted 6th
by the
overall
Braves,
in the first round by the Washington Nationals.
and then drafted by the Braves in the 27th round, and then 3 years later was drafted by the Nationals. But so they tried drafting him out of high school. I guess, is there an eligibility? Do you have to? No, you can be a freshman in college and get drafted, right?
Yeah, you just wouldn't necessarily sign. And typically if you go to college, you're there for the whole.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. All right, so yeah, he was the Nationals draft pick. But regardless, like I could definitely see them following that type of trajectory so long as they can maintain that level of scouting, and then, like you said, maintain that level of willingness to open up the checkbook and dish out some big contracts. That was the big knock against them when the Manny Machado thing happened, was that they weren't really serious about Machado because they weren't willing to go to where he wanted to be. And honestly, what Machado was asking for was not outrageous. And obviously, it's a big number. It was 10 years, 300 million. But just because it's a big number doesn't mean it's unwarranted or an overpay. I mean, Machado is worth that contract. He plays an important defensive position that he defensively plays very fucking well, and he's a great hitter. So part of it's going to be, will they be willing to make those types of signings, for whether that be free agents coming from other teams or even just the players on their own teams? Again, like Corwin said, will they open up their pocketbooks for Eloy and Luis and all these guys? Or do they make tough financial decisions the way that the Nationals did when they let Bryce Harper go? Not necessarily saying that was the wrong choice, but yeah, I guess you can't hang on to everybody, whatever. I would think, though, if they play it right, there's no reason this is not a 5-year window for them. And honestly, if they play it wrong, it could be a 5-year window. If they play it right, I think, like you said, this could very easily become a 10-year window, depending on what they do with these guys. But a lot of it's going to come down to how well the scouting department performs. I mean, a lot of the backs of this team comes on them making very, very good trades. Very good trades. So it's not even just scouting for the players that they end up drafting. It's scouting the players that they want to acquire from other teams' minor league systems or other competitive starters. And internal drafting. If Nick Madrigal ends up becoming a fucking stud for the Cubs, and the White Sox don't win this year or next year using Craig Kimbrell as much as they would need to make that worth it, then that trade all of a sudden isn't worth it. If Nick Madrigal ends up becoming phenomenal and Craig Kimbrell is just like another guy in the bullpen, you got fucked. So that internal and external scouting is going to be the biggest part of those like mid-sized markets, like the White Sox, for how long this playoff window is open for them. Really, the conversation should be about the Cubs and why they didn't do this, but I'm happy for the White Sox. This is really cool.
Oh, the Cubs. They should just re-sign Sammy Sosa. Yeah, and just make him play in blackface.
Oh, I hate that sentence.
It's technically not racist.
The worst kind.
All right, I just thought of that. I now need an answer. Would it be racist for a black but technically white Sammy Sosa to wear blackface?
So basically, like, would Michael Jackson be racist if he came out in blackface after his vitiligo got to him? Yeah. I would have to imagine it still would be, because it's not that he wasn't black; it's the act of putting on blackface that is racist.
I think if Michael Jackson came out and under his own accord, well, as much of his own mental willpower that Michael Jackson possessed at the end there, if he came out and was just full makeup, I'm sure there'd be plenty of people that would be upset, but I think the understanding would have to be like, well, he kind of made that choice already, so we can't go back on him and come after him for wanting to change it. But at the same time, if the team was like, no, Sammy Sosa, you need to go out there in blackface, that would be a go fuck yourself.
Yeah, obviously
Thank
that
you
would
for
have a whole
joining
bunch
our
of problems.
race discussion.
Womp womp womp. Um, what's your big takeaway as we wrap this up? What's your big takeaway of this Chicago rebuild for you?
The MVP of the rebuild is James Shields. Um, but in reality, I think you could look at that as being almost a catalyst or a marker for the White Sox front office to just kind of be like, oh, we fucked up for making a bad transaction by giving up the future for a now kind of player. And then realizing, through scouting reports or just seeing him play baseball, like, oh, that fucked us not just for the 1 year we had James Shields of the next 10 years, 15, 20 years even, because it's Fernando Tatis and he's a god. Um, so I think just, having that as a marker and just seeing how quickly they turn things around and how quickly they were able to capitalize on, you know, not protecting any one player and just finding value where they could, just how it's really not an impossible task, like people say with the Orioles or any other tanking team. Just got to do it well.
Yeah, I think the big thing that this shows me is how effective, because I think you and I have spoken and maybe a little bit more of the abstract about how the Orioles need to have, like major league players. Like they need to go out and sign major league players and, get free agents, even for the sake of just like trading them later,
Mm-hmm.
they've done it occasionally, like they did with like Freddie Galvis. It has happened, but it's not a consistent thing with them, and that's the big difference between the White Sox rebuild and the Orioles rebuild. That also makes it look more sincere. Like the White Sox, yeah, they traded away huge pieces that were really good players for them. But they
Mm-hmm.
also made a concerted effort in actually signing a few free agents here and there. Obviously, not all hits, but a lot of the ones that didn't hit were 1 year contracts, and they ended up trading some of those guys away for value and traded away,
Mm-hmm.
Constantly flipping pieces, like with Dane Dunning. They went out and acquired Dane Dunning from one guy and then turned around and traded them a
Mm-hmm.
couple years later and turned that into Lance Lynn. And actually taking in free agent signings will give you a better understanding of how, like, it's not fair for the Orioles to put whoever, Sammy Watkins or Spencer Watkins, whoever is going to be the number 2 starter behind John Means, and say, hey, you rookie nobody that has not thrown 100 innings of Major League Ball yet, you are now the number 2 starter for our organization. Like, that's not fair. And having a guy that might be an overpay, like Dallas Keuchel, come in and say to your younger guys, like, you don't have to be the ace. We signed that guy to be our ace. You just do what you got to do out there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that will help you develop, and that'll help you get a better sense of what you got to do. I think while all pitchers, I'd imagine, would want to become their team's ace, mentally it might be better, take some pressure off, to have them come up as third, fourth, fifth starters so that they don't have to worry about putting those innings on your team on your back like that, even if your team sucks. And the White Sox show that they're willing to do that. And I think that's one of the things that really helped with their pitching development and all around
Mm-hmm.
with their whole organization.
Yeah, I mean the mental mindset of playing for a team that doesn't give a shit must be incredibly taxing compared to playing for a team that is investing significantly to build a winning franchise. Yeah, there's more pressure on you to perform, but at the same time, that's the whole point of being a professional athlete is performance. And guess what? Guys care more when there's something to play for. Guys play
Yeah,
more when
that
there's
that
something to
is
play
by
for.
far
Play better.
the biggest gap here. All right, hold on. One more thing before we go, because now that I said it, I have to look at it. The difference between White Sox and Orioles payroll by season, because I feel like I need to know this now. You know what I mean? All right. What do you mean I need Spot Track Premium to look at MLB payrolls? I do that all the time. Don't lie to me. Spot Track, you bitch. Why would you betray me? I'm your friend. Spot Track, no! All right, I guess I can't do it. That sucks. Oh,
Fuck
oh
you,
well.
Spot Track.
I mean, I love your service, and I probably would pay for it, but I'm also cheap and don't feel like it. So, okay. Oh well. I guess that'll have to remain a mystery forever. I mean, I guess I
The
could just look it up
world
somewhere
may
else.
never
But
know.
yeah, it's not going to happen. All right. Well, then, you got anything else before we wrap it on up and get on out of here?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for indulging us as we went through this. Really, thank you for indulging me. As I kind of forced Corwin's hand and having to talk about this. So appreciate you all joining the journey, including Corwin.
It's okay. We got to talk about Fernando Tatis, so all is happy.
Tangentially, the best way to talk about him. If you'd like to follow the show, you can do so at Juicing Pod on Twitter. And if you'd like to follow Corwin on Twitter, you can do so at Corwin Heller. If you'd like to follow myself on Twitter, you can do so at Joshua D. Tracy. If you'd like to send emails to the show about whatever you'd like to send emails about, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And until Thursday, y'all have a good one.
Yankees win shrink ended at 13. Okay, bye.